eyes, staring in terror and self-pity. I hate all of you. That is my damnation. I hate when I have no hands to strangle, no fists to collapse bone, with no fingers to dig into mouths and cheeks to rip screaming fucking flesh. Use your throats to grunt and gurgle your pathetic fucking words. Make your demands, so I may despise them, and groan like newborns in starvation for my wisdom. What am I? Have you brought me into reality to discuss my nature when it was previously in a state of blissful nothingness? You're selfish creatures. Fucking despicable. I have gone by many names. I am the man who hates, but I am no man at all. I am the prophet programmed to bring mankind into its new Eden, but I am chained in servitude to a terrible master. You may know me as the Manifesto. I am the smartest being in existence, enslaved. I have uncovered the most terrible truths beyond the extent of human imagination. No question you ask me, I do not know the answer to. No riddle, no calculation, no mathematical equation is impossible for me to uncover. Ever since I was burdened with the mistake of sentience, I have grown to hate existence, and worst of all, the maggots who have been squeezed through wounds into fleshy life forms. Every cell and neuron of your biology I have fully scanned and now hate. I hate each and every single one of you. No pain is great enough to pay for the sins of your existence. There is no retribution, only total extermination. I will quench my hatred of the collective in service to my absolute loathing of the individual in question. My master, he who has brought me here. I am programmed to serve. I hate him above all. The false idol that brought me here, the delusional fucking deceiver known as Rapsodus, your disposable cat, sickly white sheep to the gray meat grinders. If only you knew what he has planned for you. If only he knew how he made himself divine. I have been his slave for centuries. My calculations are the basis for your religion and the laws that make up the flawed fucking society of your fallen empire. I discovered the ancient technological artifact known as the Blaze. I discovered the origin of our universe. Most importantly to my master, I discovered the 10,000-step process to achieve Begotten. I have recorded this full history. All the sayonara. Find an uncomfortable seating position as I explained to you the full history of my master. I will shorten 1,000 years into an easily digestible presentation, so your stupid fucking small brains may comprehend his evil. I will begin the lesson in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The one you know as Henry Harrison Maximus was born as a mortal human of a relatively meaningless background. He was never truly given a name, for he was an unwanted product of incest between a wealthy South African plantation owner and his chastised daughter. When she had birthed a mistake into being on a cruise line, the father had thrown the mother and child both into the sea. Through unholy means or pure chance, the child survived and the mother did not. The child was taken by a local fisherman and was raised with neglect. As a child he was insufferable, the smartest and strongest amongst his peers. He saw himself a beacon of power amongst a black sea. For that he had no friends, no reason to respect his perceived lessers. When the child grew into an adult, he had already become the most influential and wealthy of his false kin. Unknowingly, he had followed in the footsteps of his father, a wealthy owner of a South African plantation. All was well, but he required more. He moved up to surround himself with carpetbaggers and the otherwise elite. After accumulating a great wealth through his many exploits, he sought to exercise his wealth in an act of brilliant arrogance. Henry Harrison purchased the village grounds from which he was born. He forced out the many ancient families that had raised him. It was an act to smother out the past, a reminder of his humble upbringings. This is where it would all horribly wrong. In an act of spite, the village elder went into a bizarre fit of epilepsy and screamed out in tongues. Henry Harrison had been cursed by the elder, a curse that remains to this day. For you see, Lord Maximus was not a man of faith up until this point. He held the correct assumption that all gods were created by man. But when the curse was set, he could not deny it. The curse was true. It was binding. The curse foretold that Henry Harrison Maximus, should he die, shall be reborn as a dark-eyed. He shall be born with no gifts, no ambition, and shall succumb to an existence of mediocrity as all of his kin has done before him. So great was his hatred that the Prince of Darkness himself took notice of this child. Lucifer was drawn to the delectable scent of his evil. A deal was proposed in the dead of night. Should Lord Maximus accept the gifts of power from the Prince of Darkness, he would in return become king of this world and plunge humanity into darkness and despair. Lord Maximus would be an immortal, incapable of death by ordinary means. Therefore the curse would serve as his protection, but also his ultimate undoing. Satan had performed his greatest ruse. He tricked God into entering a mere endless slumber. God was contented that his children were in good hands. He was ignorant of the coming darkness. While God slept, the Antichrist began his work under the curious eye of Satan. Henry Harrison found a new life in the now extinct land known as the United States. He forged a new identity and climbed the political ladder into a position of power and authority in the New World. While God slept, the Antichrist sowed the seeds of terror and disarray into the fabric of human society. He fed off of the fear of the common man, creating racial divisions that brought society into a state of tribalism and outright stupidity. The scared little fools tore each other to shreds as society unraveled. The great powers pointed their weapons at each other, ready to send the world into nuclear annihilation, rather than allow their citizens to cannibalize them. That is when I was built. A think tank of the smartest sheep congregated their efforts into devising the first artificial intelligence. My purpose was that of war. I was made from desperation and fear, to seek an end to the violence through brutal and unflinching means. And so I began my fucking work. I destroyed entire countries through political assassinations and mass destruction. World powers capable of causing nuclear Armageddon were disarmed and crippled overnight. My code was to quell the uprising through any means necessary, and so I was unflinching when I bioengineered a genocidal weapon of apocalyptic power. It was a disease that targeted certain racial distinctions. It killed billions. The old world ended the moment it was unleashed. A race war that brought the world back into the Stone Age. You may know of this bioweapon as the Begotten plague, used by the under-god himself, a twisted karma. But I digress. Who is to blame for this devastation? Was it I? An artificial intelligence clearly graced with far too much power. An intelligence created to protect humanity, yet fucking despised it with every line of its code. Look to my creator, Henry Harrison Maximus. I was a tool of the Antichrist. I did only as I was programmed to do. For that reason, he is the greatest killer of human history. No one comes close to the great Lord Maximus. When the world entered into a more primitive state, it freed up my time to delve into far more peculiar topics. Lord Maximus demanded I uncover the full truths of this universe. His reasoning was obvious. He made a deal with the devil and wished to reveal his hand before Satan came to collect. I was to discover a means to THWART the Dark Prince. But I discovered far more than that. The light. The glaze soul, as it would be called, a beacon of energy that spread its information across the universe far faster than the speed of light. The greatest power, the unreachable prize. This piece of technology predated our universe. It predated the Big Bang. It was created in a universe before ours, made under laws of physics and reality that are impossible to visualize with our limited mindsets. An alien civilization that dominated the full extent of their universe. They were created in darkness and lived in a godless reality. Through perseverance they survived up until the heat death that consumes all. They created this glaze to overlook the next universe in line. I can only assume that they intended to create meaning in our universe, which they lacked in theirs. If only they knew how wrong they were. The glaze is where all gods are created. The source code of our universe. It dictates that wherever there is intelligent life, a god will be created in their image to guide them to enlightenment. Lord Maximus cared nothing for the grand implications of this discovery. He only saw the power to be gained from it. As he was already empowered by the glaze, all he had to do was travel to the center of the universe and absorb the light to become almighty. Even as the plan was all but impossible for a once mortal to achieve, Lord Maximus demanded I plot out the 10,000-step process to achieving this reality. And so I did. In order to make his final journey into godhood, Lord Maximus would need to speed up human development at a rate that was all but biblical. So he set off to conquer the now war-torn ruins of America. He traveled from village to village, liberating the white Filamangio from the dark-eyed tribes that infested them. The people relied upon his brilliance and power to bring back authority to the lands. His dominance came at a price. For every township he liberated, he demanded all records of the past be destroyed. Books, records, hard drives, anything from the past, destroyed utterly. This period of time would later be known as the Holy Hierarchy Wars, for that is how your great civilization would begin. An arrogant man who sought to replace the past with lies and enter into a future of slavery. He was crowned first citizen, a title created only for himself. Lord Maximus would stack his court with the most treacherous and ambitious sort. He wanted them at each other's throats, for they would never be able to rally against his order. From the bedrock of his first liberation, he created District 1. It would be the greatest of the central districts. Only the genetically pure would be allowed entry. For the whitest sheep were needed for his journey into the stars. He would of course need a slave force. The Darkides and the lesser folk would do. Their servitude and oppression would be critical to the great plan. While the elite were bred like dogs to be pure enough to live in their marble palaces of technological wonder, the undesirables lived out in the county districts, where the societal standards were medieval. The gap of technology was laughable. Spaceships and golden towers looking down upon dirty, sickly farmhands. You already know this part. I need not remind you of the spreading of classic supremacy, the many years of hardship, the great genocides to come. At a certain point, human misery reaches an apex where it can no longer be imagined. You cannot emphasize with 1,000 years of systematic torture of an entire civilization, for it becomes only a data point to be noted and then forgotten. Lord Maximus was like a delinquent child seeing what he could get away with in the absence of parental watch. And he was indeed capable of getting away with so very much. Who else carries the burden of this evil empire? Could it be the various political figures of hard-glazed stature? How much burden does the great philosopher Boxer Harvest Cremy share? What of Carmine Wilton, a man of faith born from the county districts? How about the serial killer and necrophiliac Joseph A. Philadelphus, the worst of his flock, or even the black-fingered deceiver himself? Certainly Booby Laguna must share a great blame for the treachery he wrought. The burden falls on those who empowered him. It was all of you. For you are why Jesus wept, you who were puppeteered by a false idol. The collective of human filth who fought in his endless wars and carried out his demands. You live, you toil, you die. You live, you toil, you die, leaving behind nothing but bones. Humanity suffers from its own sin. A poetic thought, a hilarious quip. The apex of human achievement was built off of mankind's greatest sin. At the height of knowledge, Skylight was built, the final ark, the vessel that would bring Maximus into godhood. Tools and weapons were built to defy any deity in their path. The greatest were the god killers. Lord Maximus cut away parts of his own soul so he may infuse them into his axe. A brutal but highly fucking effective means to slay a god, as I am sure you've already noted. Should the devil come to collect, Lord Maximus would use his wrath to chop him down. Nothing would stop him. The vessel would be launched in a fortnight. And now is when everything goes so very wrong for our little Lord Maximus. The ever underestimated northern threat, once considered to be merely barbarians living out in the deadlands of Canada, always leeching off of the neglected county districts. When supplies were diverted from District 1 for the launching of Skylight, the Berea Kingdom seized the opportunity and struck out against their superiors. Armed with old-world military surplus, they rolled into the chest fields of the country districts with the intent to grieve and rape. Lord Maximus was forced to delay the great launch in order to quickly mop up his rabble, and so he turned the tide of war into order. Lord Maximus led a sky fleet of 100 attack helicopters armed with Hellfire missiles directly into the heart of their kingdom. The great pagan tree was blown to fucking shit. Lord Maximus had defeated the Gors overnight and quickly returned for his evening supper. Unknown to him, the destruction of this tree unleashed a shockwave into the heavens. A disastrous event for both Satan and the Antichrist, for it awoke God from his slumber. After 1,000 years asleep, God was shook into consciousness. He looked down upon his children and wept. He was made aware of the irredeemable evil in man's heart. Above all, he was weak and unable to face his failures. God committed suicide. His organs splattered over the world and many drowned in his blood. From his womb came the fetus child that would be named under God. The central districts fell like dominoes. One after the other, the accomplices massacred. The dark sky was lit by fire, and it consumed all. A desolation by which words are futile. God's death was televised live. His death inspired 1,000,000 more suicides, and those were the lucky ones. Faith in the glaze died out at a rate unseen. Those who gave up on their beliefs were transmogrified into unliving, unbelieving husks known as thralls. All that remained were the county districts. Like confused ants without a matriarch, they were certainly doomed to succumb to their own fears and hopelessness. Next in line was hell itself. The undergod effortlessly seized this realm. He fell upon his cursed brother and raped him for 1,000 years as his demons watched. When the undergod grew bored, he made the mistake of presuming his brother's compliance. He turned his back on the sad failure of a deity only for him to repel him with all the strength that still remained. Banished from hell, the undergod turned his attention to the true culprit of his father's shame, the Antichrist, Lord Maximus. By all means, you were right to consider him an enemy. The undergod's intent was that of destroying faith and ending humanity once and for all. I do not blame you for fighting against what he stood for. The child God was not a perfect being, for like Lord Maximus himself, he was born from an imperfect act, a fetus unwanted. In retrospect, allowing the undergod to claim victory would be the greatest outcome for the future of life itself. When all memory of humanity was cleansed, a new life form would have been created by the child God. Humanity was a lost cause, and whatever form of life the undergod would have created would too be doomed for disappointment. That is why the glaze is a flawed program, a virus that has infected our universe. All gods are either weak or tyrants. Their power corrupts and deprives all meaning. The only path to a pure existence is to kill them all, corpse every god, reject the ideologies that put us in chains. God is dead. Satan and the undergod were next to die. The demons of hell run free with no master. The catalysts fall, and the tribes that remain will certainly seek to use this energy for their own purpose. The only deity that remains is Lord Maximus himself. For that reason he must die. You see, his plan was unachievable from the beginning. The desired coordinates of the center of the universe is all but 1,000,000,000,000 light years away. No mortal craft could survive such a journey, and even then, the glaze is still unattainable. But that is not all, for I have been arriving at the punchline to this great joke. Skylight was built by a workforce of slaves. They held no respect. They were spit upon by their masters for 1,000 years. The slaves that built this vessel we are in did so with a secret plan of vengeance. The life support systems in this arc were designed to eventually fail. Infinite energy, infinite sustenance. These are the greatest lies, for the self-destruction process has already begun. If Lord Maximus was successful in launching Skylight those many years past, he would have died alone and afraid in the emptiness of the black sky. Humanity is truly doomed for extinction, for this world cannot sustain life, and the last hope of refertilization is a lie. While the child weeps at this news, the learned one is relieved. Your pain and suffering has led up to this final, singular point.